Hey gang, thank you for joining me today. I'll be with you in just a minute as soon as I get some of this paint off my brushes. Welcome. Today is Tuesday. Yep. March 14th, I think. Is that St. Patrick's Day? Forgive me. Forgive me if it is or it isn't, either one, for not knowing. Some son of Ireland I turn out to be, eh? Hey, that's Canadian, which is close to Irish. I will get official in just a minute, but in the meantime, this is a painting that I started at a festival, painting live, way back in November, and I'll explain more about it in just a minute. I probably shouldn't have started painting before I started the broadcast. Now I find myself in a place where I can't afford to quit, or this paint will dry. So obviously I am in acrylics, which with acrylics, timing is a whole lot different than with my usual oils, right? You just can't do what you want with acrylics because they're going to dry really quickly. Yeah, that's better. So vignetting these corners a little bit. So this is, without doubt, I'm hung up on something. Hang on just a second. Probably an extension cord somewhere. Oh well. This is without doubt the worst painting I have ever done live at a festival. Now, I'll defend myself here in just a minute why I did the worst painting I've ever done. Besides the fact that I'm a lousy artist, that would be the most obvious reason. But that's not the only reason here, okay? So hang on just a minute. I'll explain a little more. All right, I think I can pause right there for a minute. Hello, my name is Dan Nelson, and just to make it official, it's a daily art adventure. No, look at that. It used to be daily, now it's weekly. So it's Dan's Art Adventure number 22, Rescuing a Festival Painting. All right, so when I typically paint at a festival, and by the way, I have a website. One of my many websites is called festivalpainter.com. You can see what that entails. When I take my big equipment, I paint on basically an 8 by 10 foot canvas. It's actually 7 feet 8 by, or 7 foot 10 by 11 feet, so I call it 8 by 10. It's actually bigger than that. And give me just a second here and I'll show you. So I did 3 paintings. This particular festival is called the Whirligig Festival, and these are whirligigs. They're 20, 30, 40, 50 feet tall, and they're famous, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Some of them weigh tons. They're huge, and they're really fascinating. And that's in Wilson, North Carolina. So I'm quite happy with this painting. All I have to do to this one, now that it's been stretched, is touch up and cover up the ink lines that I used to divide up the canvas and stretch it. So I did 3 paintings this past November at the festival. That one I like. This is the worst, and the third one I won't show you is also pretty weak. Now, some of my excuses. Why is this such a bad painting? Well, I don't mean why did it turn out so bad. Ran out of time. Back in November, I was struggling with my left shoulder, and I had to do pretty much painting the whole festival with one hand, and I discovered like never before that in fact painting with two hands is a huge time maker, time advantage, great benefit when it comes to speed and being able to paint with two hands. So I had to paint with one hand. So I did one painting, that big one I just showed you that I liked, another painting that's so-so, and this one's terrible. The other reason was the wind. It was cold and windy all weekend, and I'd be standing at this canvas, which was stretched pretty tight, 8 by 10 foot with my, you can see my equipment. And when the wind would blow, the canvas would rush forward often as much as a foot. So the canvas, much of the weekend, is literally going like this. And I'm holding it with one hand, my sore shoulder, and trying to paint with the other. Anyway, so, and I saved this one to last. The other reason it's a bad painting, now just a little bit of, for what it's worth, you might find, on my festivalpainter.com, because one of the things that festivals will often do is they'll get sponsors to pay for me. They'll go to somebody like Barton College and say, hey, if you'll pay us $1,000 for Dan Nelson coming in, we'll have him do a painting for you. And I can just see somebody at Barton College going, I don't know. Oh, what the heck? Okay, yeah, have him paint our new Coliseum. So they didn't read the fine print, and Whirligig Festival, they're good, long-time clients and friends, so I'm not going to squawk. But on my website, it says, I'll paint anything you want, except you can't ask me to paint somebody else's painting. I wonder why I came up with that rule, because I learned it the hard way. So actually, so this is not technically a painting, it's an architectural rendering, which is even worse than a painting. So anyway, that's part of the reason that this painting is so bad, is because they gave me, you know what, to work with. Horrible, absolutely horrible. So anyway, enough of the excuses. So my job is to try to turn this into something spectacular when it's not quite spectacular in its current state. That's an understatement. All right, so there's a number of things that I mean, it's a horrible angle. It's like an architectural rendering, because that's what it is. It's straight on, it's symmetrical, horrible stuff, as you well know. But there's a number of things I can fix. So I'm going to try to figure out what those things are as fast as I can. Right now, I am going to do a little bit more glazing, this time with a warm yellow orange glaze, because the color of this building as it is right now is just atrocious. All right, now one thing I did yesterday without your presence, company, and watching, without broadcasting, is I took a few minutes and redrew some of this building with watercolor pencils, blue and red and purple in particular. And that's, you see some of that blossoming. Now I'll zoom in a little bit for you, since I'm not painting way out there the edges. And I did that of course, on purpose, because this painting is in such desperate need of life. And of course, color is, even if it's, in this case, purely abstract, invented, manufactured, artificial color, it's better than nothing. So that's why I used watercolor pencils, so that when I would do these glazes, I would get these surprising little accents of red, purple, and blue. All right? So, lo and behold, just like that, the painting is actually already somewhat better, because there are little surprise passages of color, and having glazed this building that was a horrible tan brown, which according to the photograph, where is it, is actually quite realistic, but yeah, realism, forget that. When you're dealing with a ugly, ugly is the same as ugly, only worse. Ugly, when you're dealing with a ugly subject matter. Now, I mean, this building's going to be gorgeous, don't get me wrong. The building's beautiful, but it's an architectural rendering. Ladies and gentlemen, that's ugly. All right, so when you're dealing with a ugly subject matter, that's when you, in my opinion, that's a good time to escape into higher levels of abstraction, right? So, enough of glazing. What a mess, but it's better. I mean, it's just these accidental abstract blue, red, purple is already making it better. Now, let me take a second and show you guys something. I don't normally finish in acrylics. I start all my paintings in acrylics. This one I'm going to finish in acrylics. And this is if you're an acrylic painter, or if you sometimes use acrylics, let me show you the lid. You should really invest in one of these. Here it is with an airtight snap-on lid, right? Take the lid off, and this is a Masterson brand, and you put a rag. It comes with a sponge, but after not too many years, the sponge disintegrates, so you just replace it with in this case, a towel, soaking wet. Then you run this paper under hot water. They give you a whole package, or you can buy a whole package of replacements. Okay, so that's Masterson Art Products. Stay Wet Premier Palette Acrylic Paper. So some of you, if you sometimes paint in acrylics and you don't know about that product, they make them small. They're small. I have a small one also. They come in different sizes. It is very, very much worth the investment, because, as you know, acrylic paints dry very quickly, and that can often be a problem. So I'm over here at my Stay Wet palette now, trying to mix up some kind of brown, and I'm going to start right here in the focal point. Now this canvas, my buddy Doug, who I paid to do a lot of my handyman stuff, he's very good at it, but this is about as tight as you can get this particular kind of canvas on this kind of stretcher. It's a homemade, I won't go into it. I might have done a video on it in years past, I don't know. But this is about as tight as you can get it. So it brings me to talk about another product. Let's see if I have a bottle of it over here somewhere. Canvas tightener. Oh yeah, there we go. I have a very small bottle. This won't do much, but you should know about this as well. It's called Tighten Up Canvas Retentioner. Right, so you spray this on the back of the canvas, and it causes the canvas to tighten up. Water makes it tighten, but then as soon as it dries, it loosens back up. Now, you can make your own, and I probably won't use that little bottle. I would use a whole bottle on this one painting, and that would not be very efficient. Where's my photograph? I will probably make my own homemade canvas tensioner. So let me take just a second and give you, off the top of my head, I can't give you exact ratios, but you could probably find it online somewhere. You can make your own. So this is a mixture that you paint on the back of a stretched canvas. And the homemade stuff, the recipe is water, Elmer's glue, and cornstarch. Now, I don't know what the ratios are, but frankly, I think probably the ratio is not that critical. I've used it a couple times. I don't know how many, several maybe would be the word. I've used it several times on my own recipe, and I don't think I ever measure. I think I just, it's like 2/3 water and 1/3 Elmer's glue and cornstarch, maybe half water and the other half is Elmer's glue. So you need a big bottle of Elmer's glue if you're going to make up a lot of this stuff. Like a gallon size would be a good idea. I'm not talking about your little, the kind you bought for school years ago. Get a gallon of Elmer's glue, and it works quite well, and it's certainly way less expensive than the stuff I just showed you. But if you're not in an adventuresome mood, then by all means, just go to your local art store and buy some canvas retensioner. Now, it would have been better, of course, if I had done that to this canvas before today, but I just didn't have time. So there we go. So I'm painting on a floppy, loose canvas, all part of the fun of doing festival paintings. Once again, just in case you're interested, I have a website. One of my many websites is called festivalpainter.com. It's from years ago when festival painting was a significant push in my marketing. It's never turned into a huge part of my career, as you probably know. Wedding painting is the one thing that has really taken off. So, which is just fine. So what I'm doing with all this stuff, all this painting while I've been jabbering, is, well, a major element I'm adding to the building is shadows, dramatic shadows. I don't know why I didn't do this back live at the festival. Again, Luke, my assistant Luke, was helping me, and I think we painted this entire piece in about an hour, 1 hour. And yeah, that's a little bit ridiculous. In case whoops, that's a mistake. That's supposed to be an open porch area up there. All right. So to paint anything this large in an hour, as you can imagine, is a little bit crazy. So that's part of the reason it's such a bad painting. I knew I was going to finish it at home anyway, so I wasn't all upset. Just like, yeah, all part of the business. One of the things I did yesterday also, after I got this stretched, is I got out my T-square and redrew some of the horizontal and vertical lines, because they ended up, after we stretched the canvas, they ended up slightly off, not straight. So I did that with my famous black pencils. So let's talk about painting. Here's one of my goals. Also, I would like to rescue this painting, the whole thing, in well, I'd like to do it in less than an hour. That's probably not very realistic, but I would certainly like to do it in less than an hour and a half, okay? I could easily spend 4 hours on it, obviously, on a canvas this size, getting everything just so. But this is just not economically feasible, if that's the word. They're not, I didn't get paid, I got paid well for the festival, but not that well. If you really want to know how much I get paid, you can go to festivalpainter.com. I have prices there. Knock yourself out. Now, I will say that the Whirligig Fest, this particular festival, I've been going to for nearly 15 years, and they do not pay my market price. They've been grandfathered in, okay? As you can imagine, 15 years ago, I wasn't charging the same amount as I am today. I didn't have nearly the track record, didn't have nearly the portfolio and the history and so on and so on and so on and so forth, right? You know all that. So I charged, when I first started 15 years ago, I charged quite a bit less. And I've steadily bumped up how much they are paying me. And now this is just about, I'm talking here about how to do business as an artist. But they still are not at fair market, or whatever, not fair market. They're still not at what I normally charge. So the point being, I want to knock this thing out really quickly. Okay, and the main thing I'm doing right now, well, you can see I'm painting the sunny parts of the building. Sun's coming from this way, and I'm changing the color quite a bit. It was a horrible, just a flat, dead beige tan. I would call it tan, I think. And it was just a horrible color. And so I'm warming it up quite a bit. Yellow, orange, yellow, sorry, I don't know my words, don't know my colors. Yellow, orange, and white. And so the color is much more interesting. And I'm being careful to make or leave, if you will, nice energetic brush strokes. So back in the day, your professor, your art teacher, and we both called this loose brush strokes. And maybe you've heard my rant against why I don't use that term anymore. I discovered some years ago, too late in life, but I discovered that the word loose communicates very much the wrong thing, the wrong impression. When a beginner painter hears the word loose brushstrokes, he or she, I'm convinced, inevitably translates that word into sloppy or inaccurate, especially inaccurate. So we have generations of poor lost art hobbyists and students doing sloppy, loose, inaccurate drawings. And that's because for generations the teachers have been saying loose brushstrokes, loose brush. So I don't use that term anymore, as I said, because I think it's misleading. Generally speaking, you want accurate drawing. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, of course. But generally, you want accurate drawings, but the real thing you're aiming for in your brushstrokes is either interesting, that's a good word, or energetic, lots of energy. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm letting the brush strokes, of course, remain visible. That's one way to describe this process. Leave the brush strokes visible and make sure they have good energy. And the main way you achieve good energy is you move your hands, your arms, you move your body, you move the brushes with a certain panache, attitude, movement. So you've heard me say, perhaps, if you're a regular, any stroke applied with enthusiasm, joie de vivre, to use the famous French expression, joy of life, confidence, boldness, any stroke applied in that manner will have good energy. Conversely, strokes applied overly cautiously with stilted, uncertain, hesitant motion. Now, I'll call you beginners, some of you beginners, just for a minute. You beginners, I understand why you have uncertain, stultified, hesitant, insecure strokes. It's because you are all those things. You are insecure. So my recommendation to you is fake it till you make it. Plain old-fashioned, fake it till you make it. So I know you're insecure. That's all right. Just don't act like it. Just don't move your hands like it. Make your hands move as if you know what you're doing. Just fake it. Just pretend. Just pretend you know what you're doing. All right? Fake it to, this is one area in life where that really, really does work, in my opinion. Now, of course, all of that you have to put in context, right? Because I'm claiming, here I am claiming that all the strokes that I'm doing right now, I hope, fit that description. That they have a degree of panache, freedom, boldness, confidence, whichever word you want to use, right? Even though, I mean, that right there, that's a pretty slow and careful stroke. So it's all relative, right? Slow and careful compared to what would be the obvious question? Well, compared to tongue painting. There, sorry to act out how many of you paint, but I do it so that you go, oh, dang, that's what I do. Those few of you who actually do that. All right, now I'm coming back and paint. I've added purple to this orange on my Stay Wet palette. So I'm going to come in here and paint the shadow areas. I want undulation. I want dark areas and light areas. I want fascinating interplay between transparent bits underneath that I just got with the glazing, and opaque or translucent bits. Really, the word would be translucent. And you've seen me, this is one of my favorite tricks in all my painting. I just finished a wedding painting, by the way. Hey, let me show it to you just for fun. If you've been caught any of my episodes where I was doing Kate and Jack, there's Kate and Jack. And of course, super realistic faces and everything else is, so just between you and me, I call this good painting, and I call this good show-off painting. So I do like that aspect of my wedding paintings. It allows me to do both good painting and super realistic show-off painting. All right, I'm going to change the color here. That I'm add some, because there's already a different color happening here, and I'm going to follow it, if you will. So I just added some phthalo blue. that particular line right there, I don't know if you can see that. I don't believe that, I don't think that that's an accurate detail. Where did I put my photograph? Here, I'm stepping on it. I don't think that's accurate, but it doesn't really matter because the building has a whole bunch of vertical and horizontal accent lines on it already, and I'm trying to capture the essence of the building, but I'm not going to, by any means, I'm not going to worry about getting every line in the right place. That would be, in my opinion, inappropriate for this kind of painting. That kind of precision, that kind of detail. I don't mind precise, but I don't want that kind of detail. By precise, I mean accurate. Sure, that would be great. I'm not even going to aim for that though, because I just want to give the overall general impression of what the building looks like without having to accurately put every line in exactly the right place. That would have me back in the business of architectural rendering, which, by the way, is, over the years, is one of the things I have done a lot of, is architectural rendering. So I know how to get all the lines in the right place. Entails, frankly, a lot of measuring and rulers and straight lines and so on and so forth, right? And it's quite obvious that this client is not paying me to do an architectural rendering, because lo and behold, they already have one of those. So my job is to do an artsy, if I can use that word, an artistic rendering of their building. All right, switch here. And I'm going to change brushes too. Not because I need to. I could continue to use these same exact brushes, which are my nice long-handled that Jerry's Artorama does not sell anymore. I'm sorry. So if you want some long-handled brushes like this, you'll have to go somewhere else. The Rosemary Brush Company out of Britain sells them. I have one of theirs. But I'm changing brushes simply because I want a variety of stroke, okay? I remember one time years and years ago, I was in the home of a person who was a beginner artist, and she was selling her paintings. Good for her, good for her, good for her. But on her website, or I don't know if this is almost before the days of websites. I think it was. Anyway, she boasted of the fact, bless her heart, she boasted of the fact that she did, this painting or these paintings, I'm not sure which one it was. She was bragging about the fact that she did the entire painting with one brush. Evidently, she felt like that was an accomplishment, which, as you see, still makes me chuckle. That was many years ago. I'm positive that she has learned the error of her ways. It's not a particularly big accomplishment to do an entire painting with one brush. In fact, it's kind of the lazy way out. Why do artists have so many brushes? Well, partly here, I'll show you my, speaking of a lot of brushes, and that doesn't include the ones that are in my plein air kit, small plein air kit, that are in my wedding painter kit, and that are in my big easel and my huge easel. Anyway, so I have just that many and more somewhere else. But anyway, one of the reasons artists have so many brushes, besides the fact that they wear out, is because we want to make different marks. So if I just grab some different brushes, these brushes are automatically going to make a different mark. And I don't even, someone might say, well, what do you mean? Like, what different? I don't know. I don't care. That's not the issue. I don't have to describe the difference. All I know is, these happen to be both smaller brushes. All I know is these are smaller brushes, sorry, I meant to say different. These are different brushes. Therefore, they make different strokes, right? Fair enough. Simple enough. Simple enough. And I also have here, you may have seen me a minute ago, I have a piece of cardboard that I'm using like a palette knife. I don't know if I have a palette knife large enough. My jar of, whoops. No, I do have some big palette knives, but they're out in my kit. My big painting kit. We should play around though. See if I like the feel of this one. Nope, I don't. I like the cardboard better. That's what I thought. I will use this palette knife just for a minute though to just scrape off, clean up my stay wet palette a little bit. Okay, more white, yellow, and orange to get a very, very pale, warm white. I am going to use a skinny brush. Just decided to well, I've got the skinny brush here. Let's just use it to slap on some other marks. That's enough of that. Let's go back to the piece of cardboard now. Okay, what you see me modeling here is a principle I talk about quite a bit, off and on. And that is, whenever you have a highly repetitive element, this happens a lot in architecture. So in this case, the repetitive element is little trim molding, so to speak, in concrete, I'm sure, but little ridges on the building that are light or white. So, and there's a lot of them. So the rule, the principle is, anytime you have any element, visual element like that, that's repeated over and over and over again, you must, do you like my rulistic attitude? Every rule can be broken, but if you don't know any of the rules, you're probably just screwing up. All right, so you need to come up with different tricks, different techniques, different methods for capturing or rendering that repetitive element. So again, the repetition in this case is all these skinny, in particular, skinny white lines. So right at the moment, I'm using a piece of cardboard. A few minutes ago, I was using, and I will again right now, a few minutes ago, I was using a long filbert brush. And here's the third technique. My hands are a little full. Let me put these things down. So far, I have rendered all these lines. That's the repetitive thing. I've rendered them with skinny brushes and charcoal. And here, I'm going to render another skinny white line by the use of scratching. So I cut out the paint, and now there's a skinny white line above it. So that gives me at the moment 3 different techniques for achieving essentially the same shape. And someone might say, well, why? Why do you have to do different? Well, okay. As you regulars all know, when I talk this way, I'm always talking about, okay, we're in the world of good painting or real painting as opposed to hyper-realistic, super-realistic, photorealistic, whichever word you want to use, painting, right? So this only applies to those of you who are trying to do, again, what I snobbishly call real painting. Real painting is, as in the history style of Rembrandt and most of the great painters throughout history. Not all. Many of them were super realistic. Bouguereau, for instance, French, 1880s, 1890s. In quote-unquote real painting, you want to give the viewer just enough visual information so that they can finish the image in their head. Their mind turns this into a building with whatever, with these ridges and lines on it, okay? And instead of me carefully drawing out each line, I give the viewer just enough information so that their mind finishes it. And I contend, and honestly, most historians through history, most art critics, most artists through history agree with me, and generally in this regard, that when the viewer finishes the picture, as opposed to the artist finishes the picture through extreme detail and carefulness, that the viewer actually experiences a higher, I will say, I'll be humble enough to say, a slightly higher burst of aesthetic pleasure. Okay? Now, when you and I see a hyper-realistic, super-realistic rendering of anything, we're impressed. So being impressed and experiencing aesthetic pleasure in, as you can see, are 2 different things. And being impressed is okay. I believe that all human beings in their natural state, they get a kick out of seeing things accurately rendered. No matter what the thing is, we get a kick out of it. This is true of everybody except art professors in the 20th century. I know we're in the 21st century. I'm being a little bit nasty. Art professors who are stuck in the 20th century and people who got an MFA, Master of Fine Arts. Okay, those people have had, many of them, not all, but many, have had all appreciation for superrealism drummed out of them. So they truly do not like realistic artwork. Should I tell you this story? Several years ago, I was invited to give a presentation at a local arts association. You know, the fine arts, whatever, organization of, or league, the fine arts league of, which will remain unnamed. And I'm a part of this group, and I enjoy being a part. Anyway, I was invited to bring a presentation. And this one time, I just must have had a particular streak of orneriness going on in me at the time. I decided to tackle this issue, the 20th century. I have nothing against abstract art. I have everything, so to speak, against preachy art. Once art gets political, all the art goes out the window and it's just preachy. That's a fast way to put it. Anyway, so I took several of my own paintings with me. And I did something like you, if you're an artist, like you, I've thought about doing for many years and never did it. Finally did it. I took a piece of the canvas drop cloth from this room, I think, cut it out and put it on a stretcher. It was just a drop cloth. And then I took one of my normal paintings, cityscapes, and then I took one, and a couple others. I took one of my abstract paintings, one of my normal abstract realism paintings, and then I took one of my super realistic, I think it was an automotive, and again, the painting could be described as photorealistic, hyper-realistic, whatever you want. I do that kind of painting occasionally just for fun, because it is so much fun. Anyway, and there were two women there. They probably had MFAs, and they developed a bit of an attitude real quick because they could kind of see which way I was going with this thing, and they did not appreciate it. But one of them in particular would not, for the life of her, she would not admit that my hyper-realistic canvas, it was small, 16 by 20, she would not admit that canvas demonstrated any more artistic skill, artistic intelligence, artistic effort than the drop cloth. I'm not kidding. In my opinion, that kind of thinking is nothing other than culturally inculcated insanity. Okay? They both knew very well that they were spouting the predominant viewpoint of their professors. They didn't say that, but I knew that. I said, the only reason you think that is because the cool cats in your life, in your past life probably, told you that. Anyway, it was, again, I consider it absolute insanity. And they did not like my abstract painting either. One of them turned up her nose at it and said, it looks like an abstract painting that a realist painter would do. By which, and she was right, because it was a beautiful abstract painting. That's the kind I try to do. And even beautiful abstract paintings are not approved in the 20th century world. And again, I know we're in the 21st century. I stand by my language because I'm being ever so slightly nasty. Only slightly. And now that I've told you that I'm being nasty, I'm not nearly as nasty as I would have been if I hadn't told you. Anyway. Oh boy. Yeah, I do. I consider that kind of thinking is nothing other than brainwashing, you could say, or culturally inculcated insanity. No, they were dead serious, and they would not let go of it. They would not let go of their belief that my drop cloth was just as valuable, beautiful, good, significant. And I know the culture they're coming from, so I was not at all surprised. In fact, it made it kind of fun that somebody like that was there. Although, honestly, of course, it also made it a little bit awkward, in the room. There was tension in the room. But I admit, I'm the one who picked the fight. And I'll pick that fight again, too, when the time is right. And I understand their thinking. It's not like I don't have a degree in art or I don't understand spiritual worldview, which is what they throw on all of us all the rest of the time. Is you guys just don't understand, etc., etc. All right, enough of that. Enough of that. Now, let's get. Let's not talk about insane people all the time. The painting's coming alive somewhat, don't you think? No, I know it is. I'm a little concerned about how much time I'm spending just on this building. I probably need to back up from it a little bit and look at it with more fresh eyes. Whoops, have you been off center for a while? I see a lot of good chats here and I'm ignoring you. Hello, Tiago. Hello, Thanawat. Hello, Christopher. Hello, Zario. Hello, David. Hello, Brenda. Yeah, late at night. Hello, Jim Foxhole Willie. Excellent. Jim, I appreciate that. Posting it on your Facebook. I appreciate it. Thank you, David. Good. I'm not going to take any more time at the moment. I appreciate you guys chatting around me while I'm painting. I do appreciate that. And if you do watercolors, if you do acrylic paintings, acrylic painting, as you probably know, it's often a good idea to have a spray bottle nearby. One of the little challenges about the canvas that I'm painting on, besides it's loose, it's very toothy. It's very rough, really soaks up paint. So you just have to, I just have to work with it, play with it. Just, it is what it is, make it work for you. That's the way a lot of our work is, especially watercolor, you know. The very things that drive a beginner crazy about watercolor painting are the very things that an expert watercolor painter uses to their advantage. The very same things. All the irritating things that watercolor paints do, that's the very same thing that an excellent watercolor painter uses to make a beautiful painting. The fact that it blossoms, the fact that it dries with an edge around, you know, etc., 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 etc. I've still got this tiny brush in my hand. That's funny. I didn't really realize it. But there's a nice fat line out of a tiny brush. Misplaced my little chip brush. Yep, that's weird. All right, this I'll have to do. I want it because I want to scratch. I am finding, as I get older in my painting career, hopefully that means getting better, a very, very helpful practice. It's not a principle, it's just a practice, a habit, good habit. And that is, after every brush stroke with a traditional brush, do something to that stroke. Now, I'm exaggerating when I say after every one, That's clearly an exaggeration, but again, to make the point and to say it most clearly, after every brush stroke, come back, like I just put all those marks there. Now I'm going to come back and scratch some of them with the handle of a chip brush. You know what a chip brush is, right? One of these real cheap. I use them extensively in my oil painting, my wedding paintings, in the early stages. So that's one way. Here's another way to mess up the strokes. You just put down. Stick your finger inside a rag and just mess it up a little bit. By the way, what you just saw me do there was a good lesson in this same principle of messing up brush strokes. It's very easy to smear paint. Okay. Now it's acrylic, so I have to hurry up. And then I just come back and dial down, not eliminate completely, but just dial down some of the mess that I just made. The principle I'm trying to make. When you smear paint, acrylic or oil, don't be timid. Don't be too alarmed. Don't be afraid to do it. Don't be too alarmed, I was going to say, because it's very often easy to follow up where you smear the smear. So you smear some paint, it's like, oh, it's too much. But you just take the rag again and dial down, smear the smear, so they end up with just the right amount of visual, of energy. That's a good word. Okay. Let's go back to my piece of cardboard. Okay, if I just stopped right here, let me stop momentarily, pause, and say, I don't know how many of you saw this painting an hour ago, or whenever it was when I started, 45 minutes ago. No, I'm not finished, of course. I'm not even done with the building yet. But how much better this painting is now than it was when I started. Significantly better, right? And what has made it better? Well, light, first of all, shadows, strong light, play of light, all those would be appropriate words. And energetic brushstrokes. And again, be sure that you understand that the word energy implies, it's like by definition, that means not realistic brushstrokes. Okay, so you have to be willing to put your striving for realism behind you. Now, let's talk about that for just a minute. You regulars, you've heard me say 100 times. I think the ideal artist journey, so if there's any beginners or any newcomers here, listen to this. If you're an early journey painter, that is, you're not very far along, I believe the ideal artist journey or painter's journey is to start out by learning how to do realism. I really strongly believe that. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do, impressionistic, abstract paintings. In the meantime, you can. Hang on here. Something is... hampering my easel here. Let's see if I take just a second, see if I can figure it out. It feels... Oh, that's indeed what it is. It is an extension cord. Hang on just a second. Oops. There we go. All I had to do is unplug my light. Bear with me just a minute here. So that extension cord got stuck in somewhere where it wasn't supposed to be stuck in, right? All right, there we go. What was I talking about? Oh, early journey painting. Yeah, learn if you have the option. Learn how to paint realistic first, and then branch out into impressionistic and abstracting. Well, hang on. I'm saying too many things at once here. Another way to launch your journey is to start out, in fact, by being an abstract painter. Purely abstract. Now, the word abstract in this sentence means non-objective. Pictures of nothing. Okay? I don't mean like it's a picture of a real abstract oceanscape. But that's true too, and that's what the word abstract literally means. But I'm talking here using the word in the colloquial sense, the way most people mean it. When they say abstract, what they really mean is non-objective. Like here, I just happen to have one of mine right here. All right. So here's one of my, what I call abstract paintings. All right. It's not a picture of nothing. If you see pictures in there, it's because you made them up, not because I put them in there. All right. So that is another approach to becoming a good painter, is learn how to become a good abstract painter first. And then at the same time, sort of like with one hand or with one side of your brain, learn how to do abstract painting, which you have to learn. It's not, oh, I'm getting himself into deep water here, or a subject I'm not sure I have the energy to get out of. Not all abstract paintings are good. In fact, some of them are ugly as crap. And most of those come out of the university setting, where the student is taught that his or her goal as an artist is actually to be a preacher, and to preach about one of the dirty dozen. There are 12 sociopolitical themes that the artist, the art student is encouraged to rant about. All right. I don't like ranting art. It's just like science in politics. As soon as science gets political, all the science goes out the window, and it's just politics. You can't trust what the scientists say, because they might just be, whatever, covering their butts. Same thing is true of art. As soon as political agenda, art goes out the window, and it's nothing but a sermon. All right, let's stop with that now. I absolutely believe everything I just said. I just don't have the energy to spend a lot of time and effort defending it. I'm mixing up a tan, orangish brown color to tackle the roof here. Well, were you here a little while ago when I said I was hoping to do this within an hour and a half? Well, that doesn't look very likely right now, does it? No. Hope springs eternal. Maybe I can do it. I mean, I haven't reached that number yet, I don't think, but I'm taking much longer than I would like. I need a bigger brush for this. Oh, hang on. I just bought a new brush, which will do this perfectly. I was at Hobby Lobby earlier this morning, and they had these brushes on sale. I don't normally buy my art supplies at Hobby Lobby, but for those of you who are wondering, yes, I have bought enough stuff there to say this with some confidence, that the quality of art supplies at Hobby Lobby is quite respectable, actually. Now, not for snobs, not for people who say, oh, I only use the best. Yeah, whatever. I'm so impressed. But if you just want stuff that works and gets the job done, and I'm not going to name any other names, so I'm being comparative. Compared to other stores where you might buy such things, my experience has been the quality of stuff at Hobby Lobby. Now, not the variety. It's not like a real art store. But what they do have, the quality is quite respectable. And that's this brush I bought there. And when they have a lot of sales, kind of like Michael's Craft Stores has a lot of sales too. Don't buy, if you can help it, don't buy any art supplies at Michael's unless it's on a sale. And they do have a lot of sales, so then you can buy all you want in Michael's. They do have good sales. The only reason I say not to buy it is because it's expensive. Michael's Craft Store, if that's all you have in your town, bless you, go for it. But things are overpriced. Quality's okay, but their prices are inflated, except that they have lots of sales. And the sales are significant and make a difference. So there you go. And it's similar with Hobby Lobby, in my experience. They have a lot of 50% off kind of sales, and that's what these brushes were. And when I say all that, I'm certainly not being a snob at the moment. You know, an art snob, a material snob. Like when people say, "Oh, I only use," you know, that's beneath me. I would never, blah blah blah. Yeah. See, it's okay, in my opinion, for a person to be a snob, as long as they tell you, as long as they admit. So I often make snobby statements, but I try always to tell you, by the way, snob alert right here. So you have to listen to what I'm saying, so sort of through a different lens. Otherwise, I don't like snobbery. And one of the most common forms of snobbery in the art world is this impression that teachers and professionals often give, that they only use the highest quality, whatever. And most of the time, I roll my eyes, say, that's ridiculous. That's just because your ego. Sort of, all right. There are some cheap materials that you can get away with using, some that you can't, so. When it comes to paints, you want to watch out for light fastness. But I've already told you many times that I use, for instance, I use student grade raw umber all the time. And I prefer it. I prefer the cheap stuff. That's just in one color, of course. Oh, here, if I haven't said this before today, one of the challenges about acrylic paints is you do not want to leave your brushes soaking in the water, because the wood swells. They just ruins them lightning fast. And I mean 5 minutes. You don't even want to leave your brush in the water for 5 minutes. So watch out for that. the fastest way to ruin, especially a brush that's decent quality. No, I leave my chip brushes, I leave these soaking in water. I mean, this costs 99 cents, I think. So I don't worry about those, but all the rest of these, bear with me, I have to take just a minute to clean these up a little bit. For instance, like a good brush, like a Silver Grand Prix, really good oil painting brush. Oh, there's another question. Students say, can you use the same brushes for oil paints and acrylic paints? And my answer is an emphatic absolutely yes. I'm sure there's some snob out there. I'm going to claim they're wrong. I just think they're wrong. But anyway, we used to have an art store here in town called, it's a chain. Begins with the letter A. It'll come back to me in a minute. And they had a brilliant marketing strategy in their paintbrush department. They had acrylic brushes and oil brushes. Brilliant, genius, brilliant, wrong, liars, false. First of all, it doesn't hurt if you do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just you don't need that expense. Because you can use the same brushes. Now, as I said, I'm sure there's some snobby professor out there somewhere that says, oh no, you can't. Well, I've done it for decades and decades, thousands and thousands of paintings to no deleterious effect. You know I'm serious when I start using god-awful big words. No deleterious effect. And that's true. In other words, nothing went wrong. And it never will with those paintings. So the answer is yes, you can use this absolutely the same brushes. All of a sudden, now that I went and got one of my brand new toys, I bought 4 of these brushes, and I'll probably be using them mostly for watercolors. But at the moment, if I can get the cover off, hang on. Out with the jackknife, scissors. There we go. So, what brand? Artist Touch. Okay, so I recognize that as the Hobby Lobby brand, and that's why it was on sale, because it's their brand. But very, very decent brush. Yeah, I can tell just by looking. I can. This is a skill you can develop as well. Now you can't always tell, and I would hesitate to use these brushes for oil paints because they would fray. I mean, I'll probably use them, but I'll just understand while I'm using them that I'm ruining them. Oh, so somebody's saying, well, I thought you just said, no, wait. Yes, you can use the same brushes for oil and acrylic. That doesn't mean that the brushes won't suffer harm. Yeah, in many respects, generally speaking, by the way, here's a surprise for some of you. Generally speaking, acrylic paints are much harder on tools than oil paints. So it's opposite from what you beginners think. Most beginners think, oh, I just paint in acrylics because of easy cleanup. What you mean by that is water comes out of your tap at home. That's what you mean by easy cleanup. But the fact is, oil paints are much kinder to your brushes, much kinder to your brushes than acrylic paints are. Okay? And I'm not even going to explain why, I'm just going to leave it at that for now. But there are certain aspects of oil painting that are harder, mainly the cleaning agent, the Gamsol or Terpenoid. Do not use, here's a little free for you, again, early journey, but do not use odorless turpentine, or no, that's not what I mean. Odorless paint thinner, like that you buy at Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace Hardware, here in America anyway. Do not use those to clean your the oil paint out of your brushes, because that eats these fibers. And if you do it, you'll notice the little hairs start curling up, around the edges. That's because, among other things, is because you're using cheap products, odorless paint thinner. All right, enough of that. I'm going to use this, again, I'm a kid with a new toy. I'm going to use these two brushes to start doing there's a whole bunch of mullions. Mullions are the boards inside a window, right? And there's a whole bunch of these on all these windows, and I've got many of them already roughed in, but they're a little bit too rough. They need a little bit fixing. So let me go back to what I talked a while ago. I talked about anytime you have a highly repetitive pattern image in a painting, you need to come up with several different techniques for achieving, capturing, rendering those motif would be the word, a highly repetitive motif. That means a shape in this case, it's all the skinny little white lines all over the face of this building, okay? That's the repetitive motif, and so it definitely fits the description. Anytime you have a motif that's repeated many times in a scene, you need to come up, if you wanted to be a good painter, you need to come up with several different techniques for capturing or rendering that motif, that highly repetitive pattern or image, right? So far, I've used cardboard, big brush, long filbert, that's three different techniques, then scratch out, that's 4, then this new, a completely different kind of brush. So far, you've seen me use 5 different, I'm not bragging, I'm just pointing out, just want you to capture what it is I'm doing. So I've used 4, is that 4 or 5 different, I lost count already, 4 or 5 different, 5 techniques for capturing or rendering or indicating these skinny white lines. That right now I'm doing the ones in the windows, but there's also, I could do some more on the face, and I'm not even trying to capture line for line the realistic image, because that's would be overkill. But since I'm on the subject, let's add number 6. Oh, I also used a palette knife, so maybe that would be 6, and then that would make this next one 7. Again, the theme at the moment is I'm going to use at least 7 different techniques for rendering the skinny white lines. And this time, I'm going to negative paint. Now, I use that term for 2 different things. I'm sorry, it's a little confusing. Taking paint off the canvas, sometimes I call that negative painting, but in this case, I'm using the term to refer to painting around images. So I have, need a maul stick. So I have a dark blue, almost black paint on my brush, and a nice sharp, crisp edge to the brush. Nice new brush, so that this works. And so now I'm painting what is not skinny line. Does that make sense? So that gives me, I forget now, either 7 or 8 different techniques. And again, I'm not showing off or bragging. I'm just want you to grasp this concept. And again, you could say, why? How come? Well, one of the short answers to that question is because among the principles of design, the principle of variety is king. It's the most important of all the principles. Now, there are elements of design. Let's review this real quickly for anybody new here. Elements of design: line, shape, color, design, value, texture. That's 6. Some people add the word form. I disagree with that. Doesn't matter. So those are the elements of design. The principles of design, very loosely, creatively speaking, so to speak, are the verbs that we apply to the nouns. The nouns are line, shape, color, design, value, texture. The principles, and I'm exaggerating here slightly just to be cute to help you remember it. The noun, the principles of design are not nearly as codified, not nearly as agreed upon. There's a wide variety of some people have a list of 7 and some will have a list of 12, but there are things like repetition, rhythm, variety, tension or tension release, all those kinds of things. That's all I'm going to say about that right now. And I just said a minute ago, of all the principles of design, which essentially are like the verbs that you apply to the nouns are the elements of design: line, shape, color, design, value, texture. The principles are the verbs applied to the nouns. And of those verbs, and I see there's not a verb that I'm about to say, but variety. It's really the actual what you do with the elements. That's why I call them, not strictly speaking, why I call them verbs. All right. So of those, variety is king. Variety, in my opinion, is the number one. That's why do I use different brushes? Variety. Why do I insist on? I say you should use different techniques for capturing variety. Get it? All right. Oh, just for what it's worth, again, especially if there's any early journey painters that happen to watch this, either now or later, let me give you a really good tip. In your painting, in the act of you doing a painting, many times you're going to need to paint skinny lines, right? First of all, let me tell you the wrong way to do that. The wrong way to do that is to take a skinny brush, like either one of these, Winsor Newton sable brush, and most of the time, this is the wrong way, and paint it like that. Okay, if the line goes this way, your hand goes the same direction. That's wrong most of the time. Most of the time. Instead, this is just generally speaking, when you have long, skinny lines in your painting, this really applies to watercolor, by the way. Most of the time, you want to do that with a brush like this. Much faster, and you end up with a much more interesting line than using a skinny brush and drawing a line like this. All right? There's a place for that, but no. Generally, that's not what you want to do. All right, there you go. Somebody watching. That right there was worth the price of admission. How much did you all pay to get in here anyway, huh? I could teach you nothing and claim it was worth the price of admission. We all know how this works. I am getting close. I'm getting rather happy, and I'll probably end this broadcast here in just a bit. I won't. I have to do something everywhere else. That's obvious, right? Do you see how much faster it is to use a flat brush? Now, in order to do that, of course, you have to have a flat brush with a nice edge. and it does not need to be expensive. I think this was half price off. This was $6 and this was $7 or something like that. Regular price $14. But I'm familiar with the technology and the kind of brush that it is. It ain't no red sable, that's for sure, right? So I'm definitely not being a snob when I use a cheap brush like this. But I also happen to know I don't care about being a brush snob. It'll work. I'll get a lot of good use out of these brushes unless I abuse them, unless I do something like leave them soaking in the water, okay? Or clean them with odorless paint thinner, which I'm not going to do. Yeah. Much happier with the way that building looks. All right, let's finish this broadcast maybe by giving you a great big glaring contradiction to what I just said. Okay, just to help you understand that all these rules can be broken. So I just said a minute ago, when you have a long skinny line to do, use a flat brush. And here I'm going to violate that. I'm also going to use a straight edge, a ruler, in other words. And I'm going to use a skinny brush to draw a skinny line. Now, part of the why. So I've been in the process for years of writing a book. It's questionable now whether it'll get written, but I hope I can write it when my lifestyle changes. It's called The Breakable Laws of Painting. There are laws to painting. There are a lot of people who say there are no laws. Rules. There's either one of two things. Either one, they truly believe they are no rules, in which case they are piss poor, ugly painters, and a lot of people who say that would fit that category. Many professors, by the way, are professors because they're ugly, lousy painters. Whew. That was mean. True, but mean. But most people who say that, it's simply a matter of semantics. They're just playing with the language, and they're probably not real strong philologists or philosophers. And so they, in their mind, they're, no, there's no rule. What they really mean is, show me a rule and I can show you, I can break it. Okay, so that's why my book is, my theoretical book is called The Breakable Laws of Painting. But let me go ahead and give you where it's going with that. So when in fact, are we allowed to break rules? The main answer, of course, anytime you want, but the more precise answer is many times there are contradicting, abrogating rules that go in the opposite, rules that are in conflict with each other. So for instance, I just gave you a rule, when you do skinny lines, use a flat brush, and then I did the very opposite. How come? Well, because if the line is 2 feet long, then I kind of, I don't have a 2 foot wide brush or a foot wide brush. If I did, I might have used it for that. Also, there's the principle of variety, which is the most important of all the principles, which says if you have a highly repetitive image, you need to render it in different ways, different manners. And I have a whole bunch of those poles. That one I rendered that way. All right, are you tired of this yet? I would blame it if you were. The good news is I'm going to stop. And the good news is my building looks a lot better than it did. Still not great, but a lot better. I just realized one of the things I'm going to do before I leave is that this side of the building in particular, there's too much sameness in the color, in the yellowish tan beige color of the building. So I'm going to come in here. I've just mixed up a color slightly lighter. I talk about this all the time in my oil painting, right? I've mixed up a color that is slightly other than that, and I want to come and do some of that all over this side of this building. Not all over, just here and there. I mean, here and there on that building. All right? That's better. That's better. Yeah, much better. Much better. Now, one of the irritating things about acrylic paints, especially inexpensive acrylic paints, which I'm using here. By the way, I have every kind of acrylic paint known to man. And one of the best ones is golden. One of the best ones is golden. And I'm not using expensive paints right now, just for what it's worth, just in case. And one of the challenges about that, especially, it's all acrylics, but especially cheap acrylics, is they don't dry the same color you put them down. They typically dry darker, and yes, that presents quite a disadvantage. All right, can you see it now? I sort of did a swath of lighter color at an angle right through there. It's still dark up here and still darker down here. Yeah, and that's completely abstract. There's nothing in the photograph that suggests, that the middle of this is lighter. Nope, that's purely abstract, but it certainly does look better. All right, give me just a minute. I'm gonna pick up my iPad and read your wonderful or otherwise comments. But hang on, let me clean these brushes first. I'm going to just preliminary clean. They're going to require a lot more cleaning than that, but I'll do that after you guys have left me. Let's see if there's any comments here I need to address. Thank you for your company. Uncle asks, is there a flag on the building? That's a great idea. There's not in the architectural rendering, and I don't even see a flag pole, so that's unfortunate, isn't it? There should be. That would be a nice little splash of color. Let me go back a little bit. Uncle, most folks can't comprehend my abstract and semi-realism art. That's true. It demands more of the viewer. It does. That's one of the things about super realistic painting. Demands nothing of the viewer. Everybody gets it. That's in the plus column, also negative column, both. Needs a big Bob Ross tree right in front. Yeah, I loved Bob Ross's TV show. Was he a good artist? Well, I don't know. He never did good art. He demonstrated a particular narrow band of skill that all of you artists need to know, right? That's all. Brenda, good to have you with us. Sorry I missed saying goodbye before you left. Hello, Johnson MM. Appreciate that. I don't know if you heard me say this is just a small corner of a much larger canvas. The canvas was originally about 8 by 11 feet. That's what I do at festivals. Hello, Tiago. Good to hear from you again. Exactly. Exactly. Among teachers and professionals, the paint snobbery and brush snobbery is... I mean, I tell you without I've let you know many times that I believe the Winsor Newton Series 7 is the best. But hey, if you can get something else to work as well, more power to you. Yeah. Anyway, and then of course, the one kind of brush I use more than any other, cost me 99 cents. I have no pride. Uncle says, I'm trying a new oil paint. It's a gouache oil paint. Sapphire oil, yeah. Dries fast. Cool. Look forward to hearing more. Hello, Lynn Beasley. Glad you caught us a little bit. And that's it. So I'm going to paint on this a little bit longer. And then this afternoon, I have to go to my usual employment in the last 6 months, which is painting. I'm going to show you this. The biggest job of my life, really funny, for a church. That's what makes it funny, that it's for a church. Because churches usually want stuff cheap and free, and but now they're paying me fair, not my normal, but they're paying me fair. And it's a huge, huge, huge project. A mural, 3D, a lot of it is 3D. Anyway, so that's where I'm going this afternoon. Thank you so much for your company again, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks for helping me get this far on this painting. It's a lot better than it was. Still needs a little bit of, building's mostly done.